All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know your time is valuable, Leo. So, everyone, we have our CEO, and I was thinking of a title for you this time, Leo, um, because it keeps changing. But right now, I feel like you're the most impactful and innovative CEO of any real estate company across the globe, just leading. You've led us in a couple of turns in the past, and most recently with the implementation of our new disclosures to be proactive. I love that as a company, we are proactive in leading the industry, and of course, that everything rises and falls with leadership. So I'm super excited, and I'm so grateful that you're ahead of the game and guiding the ship. So without further ado, Leo.
Thank you so much, Rosie. I known you a very, very long time, so that this role is extra fun for me because what most people don't realize, a lot of you guys I've been friends with for 10, 15 years. So, um, this is your time, Rosie. Do you want me to hash out what I did on the leadership call? Do you want to make it open questions? I mean, I'm always happy to rant about all kinds of stuff on my mind. So you tell me where you want me to take it.
Well, I think the first thing that comes to my mind, and probably right now, the mindset that people have is like it's the end of the year, and 2026. How do I get myself ready for 2026? So I think some of the parts and pieces that you shared on our leadership call are relevant to that conversation. Um, and then we can get into a little bit more like tactical type stuff with you know, day-to-day
Sure.
activities. Yeah. So
Perfect. All right. So, philosophically, I want to share a thought. So, one thing I tend to do pretty well is see stuff, see shifts, see policy, see rules, see litigation, and just absorb it and actually not have opinions, um, emotionally reacting. And then I have opinions very shortly thereafter. And one thing I said to all of you during the NAR thing was, hey, we can be as mad as we want. Like it was bullshit. It is bullshit. I don't think we did anything wrong. I think the attorneys are a bunch of ambulance chasing, self-centered money grubbing, pick your favorite bad word, and they don't give a damn about the American consumer. With that said, once we say it and vent, cool. Now there's a new set of rules. And my job is always to protect you guys. And I th the lens I look through is what's the best thing for the American consumer? Because I think we disproportionately win if we make that the North Star. So sometimes I get kind of chastised on Wall Street where they're like, I think he's full of it because at the end of the day, he's a capitalist. I am a capitalist. And I think the path of least resistance is actually, if you don't mind, take me off spotlight. I like looking at everybody's eyes.
yeah.
Um, and have your cameras on, please. So, and you too, Rosie.
Yeah, of course.
Um, so it's important to always understand who you're serving. So when the policy change happened last summer, and I said no more broker to broker, it's because if that's what we got accused of and that's where the liability comes from, let's just stop doing it. And you would have thought I offended everyone's firstborn child because it was like a really loud 2 weeks. And the really cool part is that's the first time we were tested as a company. Um, A, that was the first time I think every single agent at the company paid attention to what I had to say. And I did a lot of this in small and large settings. And the coolest part was I got a compliment from a CEO of an MLS that said, your agents on the ground know more about this subject than my staff does. And so collectively across the country, we became like the standard bearers of doing the right thing. And I think it got us a ton of goodwill. It changed policy, and a lot of states then adopted how we did it. And so I learned a couple things. One is we've matured as a company, and I said it on our last earnings call that we're no longer the cute startup. We're actually one of the dominant incumbents. And that's actually like maturing, right? It's like going from being a teenager to being an adult. That doesn't mean that we're still not nimble and agile as we keep demonstrating. But now it's like we have grown up money. We can make decisions, we can pivot, we have resources. So a couple more times, if you earlier on the spring when the CCP stuff happened, I rolled out new forms, new disclosures within like days. And that's just what recently happened a couple of weeks ago. NAR, I think, fumbled again and did not vote with logic. And we were able to operationalize and launch forms in 72 hours. Like Holly and I talked on a Sunday, and by Wednesday, we had them in Skyslope, which is incredible. Um, and so, which brings me to the thought that Rosie started. So I was very, very loud about CCP for about 18 months. When NAR and even Zillow made their rules, I thought that was it. And then Compass Anywhere, a merger was announced on September 22nd. And that's when I kind of had this aha. I'm like, doesn't matter what the rules say anymore, period. Um, we now will have one entity in the United States in the next 12, 6, 12, 18 months, depending on when it closes, that has like 28, 29, 30% market share. Nationally and then locally in some markets, it's going to be 40 or 50%. So my aha is I can't predict the future, but directionally accurate, I can predict that there is going to be strong consolidation, right? And I just look at history, right? And I said this to Rosie and her other leaders in my other call with them is historically in the United States, when an industry consolidates, it does not stop. So for all of you that grew up in this country like I did, there's a lot more airlines when we were kids. Now there's American, United, and Delta. There was a lot more health insurance companies. Now it's Cigna, United Healthcare, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? There was at the turn of the 18th century in the Gilded Age, there was 118 railroad companies, and there was four. There was a lot of oil companies, then there was two, right? And so I do believe that in 3 to 5 years, there'll be 3 to 5 meaningful real estate companies. And it'll be us, it'll be Compass Anywhere, and two others that I can't tell you who it's going to be yet because I don't know. Um, but they'll be scaled, they'll be national, they'll look a lot more like us. It'll be interesting to see what happens, which way franchises go, because they're not one entity. But what I do know is if I look at the currency and the oil of this industry going forward, it will be listings, unequivocally more than ever before. And so even since I last spoke with um, Rosie, I actually had a dashboard built. So can you guys see my screen? Are you guys seeing this Live website?
Yes, yes.
So anybody that doesn't know this, this is a huge deal. We launched this a couple of weeks ago. Um, I will the URL is LYVVE. So this is interesting for a couple reasons for you guys. One is this is a testament to how fast we can build software today. So the other thing that you probably heard me talk a lot about in 2025, and it'll continue to be a big deal in 2026, is vibe coding. So does everybody know what I'm talking about when I say vibe coding? So vibe coding is the ability to write software using natural language. So this would be your Christmas break homework assignment. If all of you have not vibe coded something, I implore you to do it during the Christmas holiday so you realize how easy it is, right? So I'll put here in the chat probably the most robust apps, lovable.app. Go spend 49 bucks, upgrade it, and do simple stuff like build a single property website. Um, it's where Glenn Sanford built the hub, right? Have you guys all logged into the hub, eXp Realty? So after we launched got a Slack, which again, I didn't want to switch platforms. Like switching platforms is about as fun as playing in traffic. But Meta and Zuckerberg decided they weren't going to support Workplace anymore. So we switched to Slack, which I still think is the best option on the market from a scale standpoint, cost standpoint, reliability, SOC 2 compliance, all these things. But you guys all DM'd him and told him it sucked. And he took it upon himself and he built that by himself in 45 days. Like that did not exist 12 months ago. Like the ability for a non-technical person, like Glenn does not have a computer science degree. He cannot write React with a Python backend doing this. He doesn't know how to. I don't know how to. But now we can just build stuff. So live.com was built by Felix and team in International. by going to exprealty.com. The place we keep code is called GitHub. So it's a GitHub repository. He was able to grab that code base, put it into a vibe coding app and say, use this as the base layer of code, and we want to build this. And so we now have a global website, and it's got this really cool ticker. But if you click in here, it's every listing in every single country we have, which by the way, like I don't know of another website that does this globally. And by the way, in my opinion, this is what I would call a shiny object because fundamentally in all your local markets in the US, you still use the MLS or Zillow or Realtor.com or like whatever your favorite national portal is. Because by the way, live.com is only showing us EXP listings. But that little ticker there was really interesting in my opinion. And so from that ticker, actually from the time I had that last meeting, I had this dashboard built out. You guys are seeing where it says executive dashboard. So this was built since like my last meeting on Thursday, Rosie. Just so you, like 10 months ago, there's no way I could build software between when I met with you guys and I said, hey, this number matters. I actually hung up with you guys, Rosie, and said, I want this broken down by country. And then I saw this dashboard yesterday, and probably by tomorrow, I will have this broken out by state. And I want a side-by-side comparison to us and Compass and Anywhere and Berkshire and Remax. Like I actually want to know by brand who's got what and where. So my obsession for 2026 and beyond will be about listings. And there's two levers for that. One is I want you consciously attracting the top listing agents in every market. And that does not mean mega, right? Some of the most successful agents I've ever met in my life are solo producers that do 20 to 40 or 50 listings only, like refuse to take buyers, and just hyper focus. So here's some numbers for you. 350,000 transactions according to Real Trends in 2024. 210,000 of that were buyers, 140,000 of that were sellers. By the way, that 60/40 split kind of holds at scale with most large companies. Mostly because listings tend to be concentrated in a very few amount of agents that do them, right? So it's like 80/20, 90/10. And so you have small indies that have them, you have small solo agents that focus on them. So I would implore all of you, focus on attraction, which is what we're talking about, to go find the listing agents. And by the way, you can lean on the growth team to help with that. Like we can generate lists out of Quarter.io for you guys. Because in 2, 3, 4 years from now, that's what's going to matter more above everything. So, and then there's two levers. The other lever I'm going to obsess with is how do we empower, educate, give you guys tools to generate more sellers. And again, super top of mind with all the litigation going on right now. I think it's a great moment to remind everybody that if you outsource your lead gen to a third party, you lose control, right? And by the way, that's been the case for the 23 years I've been licensed. I personally learned that painfully with Fannie Mae. At one point, they were the majority of my business, and then they decided to make a decision on their business that didn't include me. And it almost put me out of business. And that day I decided, hey, I'm never going to let any entity that I do not control generate more than 25% of any business pillar, right? Because it's their legal right to change their mind and decide they want to outsource it, insource it, sell the paper, like completely out of their control. And so I would apply that logic to just about anything else. So those are the two things that are super top of mind for me. Attract listing agents, um, generate more listings because it controls our destiny. So I'll pause there. That's the abbreviated version of my rant, Rosie, and I can go into any detail of anything else you want to go, or we can go in a different direction.
Well, since we're talking about listings, just as a focus for 2026, whether you're out in production or you're growing a team, an organization, some people may not know, Leo, that you, if I'm not mistaken, you sold, was it over 4,000 homes a couple years in a row and
Well, I
number one
sold a
agent?
total of 4,000 homes. I
Okay,
sold 600 to 800 homes for like almost 8 years in a row.
8 years in a row. Okay. And you were the number one agent in, at the red company over there for a while. So the reason I wanted to highlight that is because you know what it takes to build a strong listing business. And so if you were back in the trenches today, you're like, you know what, screw this. I don't want to be CEO of the fastest growing company in the world. I just want to go sell some more homes. um, uh, what would you do? Like you're like 10 steps ahead of, all of us, in terms of where you've been and what you've seen. What would you do to get ready for 2026 to get yourself ready to take
Yeah.
over the market? Mhm.
So good question. And I want to caveat with it that the answer is not the same for everyone. So
Mhm.
the first thing I talk a lot about is understanding how God wired you. And that's an important starting place, right? So, for example, Glenn and I are very close and we're very yin and yang. But he actually sold close to 3,000 homes, which most people also don't know about.
I
He
didn't know that.
EXP 1.0 was a mega team that he left Keller Williams to start because there was friction in the franchise system. It's literally why this company tends to attract mega team leaders because me and Glenn were mega team leaders. So, like, it is what it is. It's in the DNA of this company. Glenn was an SEO genius, and if you ever get him talking about SEO, it makes my eyes gloss over because that's not how I'm wired. But he had a buyer only business model where he built unique local content. It was called Buyer's Tour. And so he had it in Bellingham, he had it in Seattle, he had it in Arizona. He was in Nashville. He was number two in the MLS, only behind Gary Ashton. Like it was not like I'm going to
Wow.
do expansion and put three people there. Like, no, he was killing it. But it was all SEO to cold lead to conversion. And like he can, as he tells you, he starts getting amped up because that's his like genius zone, right? And I was the total opposite. I'm high relational. Um, and I built multi-transactional center of influence relationships, and I did it for 15 years. So no matter what market cycle I was in, I always found a buyer or seller who I could transact multiple times a year. So when I would sell 600 homes a year, I maybe had 10 clients that did that with me. So some did like 150, 200 transactions a year, and some did 50 transactions a year, but no one just did one transaction with me, right? And so once upon a time, before the market run up of the early 2000s, I was the instructor for the Hispanic Committee of Virginia, and I taught classes in Spanish to first-time home buyers, and they would send me 20, 30, 40, 50 buyers a year. I was the go-to agent for the World Bank, the IDB, the Interdevelopment Bank, and pretty much any government institution abroad who has was bringing executives over from overseas, but needed a rental and didn't speak English, and they were ignored by most people. But then, I put them in a rental, and then 3 years later, they bought a $800,000 house, and no one understood how I did it. Then the market collapsed, and I got really good at working with banks. Um, and not because I understood the language. Like where I've gotten really good at is obsessing over a niche. I believe life is way more interesting in niches. And by the way, like I think that's become our ethos as well. Like I'm the first one to tell independent broker or a team leader or an agent, like, we're not for you. Like if someone says, hey, I want class A space, I want you to pay for my marketing, I want a credit for this, I'm like, then go to Sotheby's. Like I don't offer you space. I'm going to charge you substantially less and entrepreneurially, you can go lease that space, right? And that's not bad. That's not good either. It just is an understanding what your value proposition is. And so I've distilled EXP as the home of the entrepreneurial agent, right? I believe that most of the brand first companies, Compass, Anywhere, Berkshire Hathaway, are the home of that like self-employed agent, right? If to pull old school, it's the S quadrant or the cash flow quadrant. It's that agent who has a practice, right? And if you talk to agents that get to a certain size, they can't stay there because then they're paying like seven, $800,000 in splits to any of those companies. And so we are the home of the entrepreneurial agent. which to answer your question, Rosie, I knew like I speak a couple languages fluently. One of them is finance, right? And so I can sit down with an investor and ask them like, what's your driver? Is it IRR on capital? Is it equity appreciation? Is it depreciation on cost segregation? Is it asset accumulation? Like there are things that I've gotten to understand very quickly. And so when I get in front of an opportunity, I speak a common language. So if I were getting into buying and selling real estate, I get
Sí,
asked this question all the time.
pueden moverme al
I,
dormitorio, ¿no?
Sorry
Mary, are
about
you
that.
unmuted?
We need to mute.
I tell folks all the time, I would use either RPR, Realist, or Remine. One of the three is included in your MLS for free. I would sort by a geography I like, call it a county, a city, a zip, and I would find every absentee owner and do an export of all the fields, absentee owner, and then I would sort by an Excel by mailing address. Because what you will find by doing this exercise is that I'm looking for owners of multiple properties. And you can't do it by title because it's very common to have a property in 123 Main Street LLC, like it's called an SP, a special purpose entity. But the mailing address is normally where you send all the utility bills to. And what you're hunting and pecking for is investors that own multiple houses. And statistically speaking, 90 some percent of all investment properties in the United States are owned by mom and pop investors, defined as 10 or less doors. And so if I were starting over, and again, it's not for everybody, but it's a language I speak and I understand fluently, I would sort the geography I want to be an expert in. And again, depending on the product type, like does it cash flow? Does it do certain things? I would then try to get a hold of the owners and I would use a specific script. I would say, I was doing some research in, Miami Lakes, 33143, whatever I did, and I see you own multiple properties. From time to time, I come across unique opportunities where a seller may want to sell their property off market because they're an investor, they don't want to bother their tenant. Can we jump on a Zoom or grab a coffee so I can learn what your buying criteria is? Because the biggest misconception with investors is that we all have the same buy box. We don't. Like I just bought the house across the street. I paid a price that wouldn't make sense for most people, but I want my a couple of my relatives nearby, and more importantly, I'll probably tear them all down and build very expensive homes on them eventually, right? And I like one person could be underwriting his cash flow, one's underwriting the square footage of the lot, and you don't know that. And so if you did that and you found 500 absentee owners, what's one of two things is going to happen. One, they're going to say absolutely, right? There's no investor on the planet who's like, nope, I'm done buying. They're like, you bring me the right deal, I'll buy it, right? That's what an active investor says. You will also call one who hates his rental properties. He goes, I hate all of them. I'm tempted to burn them down any given Tuesday. And you can then say, excellent. Is there a price you would accept on 123 Main Street if I were to bring you an off-market cash buyer where you would not have to switch tenants and nothing changes and we can close in 7 days all cash? Right? And all of a sudden you start building a database of ready, will, and able sellers for a price that you found off market. And the same list can probably generate your cash buyer list. Right? Again, one strategy. That's what I would do if I got started all over again. I got 4 minutes left.
Yep. So with 4 minutes, I'm going to switch gears completely because we're talking about now not transactional, but more like creating that legacy and really taking advantage of that lane that we have and that opportunity here to grow something without taking on liability of being a broker and whatnot. So because a majority of the people in here were in the attraction series, where should we put our attention and why? And my thought right now is a lot of the independents, only because of what you're saying, what the market will look like in a few years and what they're able to do. But I'll let you expand on that as we come to our close.
Well, I think the part that I'll close with where I actually go back to all the time, right? It doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what technology happens. It doesn't matter what interest rates happen. At the end of the day, residential real estate stores humans being. And I go back to that all the time because it is different than if you guys would do commercial and you would do industrial space versus land versus warehouses, right? Like in the worst of 2009, I had a mentor who had invested in some data centers in Dulles Corridor after the tech bubble. And it sat vacant for 3 years at the tune of like $1,000 a day in interest carry and taxes. Luckily, this guy was worth a couple of $1 million or hundreds of millions of bucks. And he was able to weather that storm and uh, held it long enough where Amazon came and did 3x his money. Residential real estate's not like that. Like if there's a correction in the market and rents goes from 1,800 bucks, you lower it to 1,600 bucks or 1,400 bucks, you will rent it out the next day, right? Like there is less properties available for rent or sale than humans in America. Like we have a systemic lack of inventory to the tune of like 4 or 5 million homes. Human condition puts upward pressure and downward pressure on the housing pool, meaning people turn 18 every single day. People make babies every single day. People want to move out of their mom's basement every day. So there's this natural pressure at the bottom of the entry point. And every single day, people pass away, get divorced, lose their job. And so there is this forced pressure into the market by sellers and buyers. And so at the end of the day, you just need to say, do I still want to help families do the most important financial decision of their life, given the set of rules, MLS, forums, and AR litigation? And if the answer is yes, just continue to do what's right by people and put their needs first, and you will provide for your family in a wonderful way.
Now, if we're now thinking, for example, so I was a broker for a franchise company, Leo, and then I was independent for a little bit. And what I did not want or was not drawn to is just the liability and like the heavy lifting of doing everything under the
Hmm.
sun, and then walking away with a very small portion. So the conversation around growth for
Yes.
me
So,
is
so
how
what,
do I
what,
go
what
in,
I will tell
right?
you, Rosie, like the conversation's playing out regardless because of the way the industry's shifting. So, and I do have to go to
Yep.
my next call, but just lead with value. Give as much away as possible. It's not an accident I open source our forms. Like I did it because I think it's good for the industry, but don't get it twisted. Like that's the soft sell of the century. The amount of people who've joined us who said, I'm already using your forms, I might as well be here. You're already acting like my broker versus my brand.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
just keep giving away as much value as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you for your time. Uh,
Always take care. Bye.
yeah. Thank you. A few thoughts. That was amazing, right? That was incredible. Just hearing from him. And I think one of the biggest things that I took away from the meeting that we had was just, you know, a lot of us keep our head down and we're focused on the things that we're doing right now. Okay, we got to sell the next home. And I wanted to address that. And I want to make sure that you guys on the call that, you feed your families off the production, that you got some insight from that. However, thinking beyond that and thinking about how, for me, there's going to be major players in the industry, the consolidation of the market, and how listings become more important. One, skill up on your listing game. Yes, because access to information may look different in a few years. If these big companies start consolidating, luckily, you saw that we have our global website, which is awesome because I don't know of any other company that has all of their global inventory on one site. Like essentially, we have our own MLS, right? We have a huge pool of inventory nationally and internationally. So I'm so happy that I'm on this bus because only this bus, in terms of the industry, creates all those opportunities for me. In other words, I'm not going to be short of looking for properties for my buyers, and I'm going to have a lot of people to show the listings to. If it was a closed system, right? Now there's only you have to go here to look at this property. You have to go there to look at that property. Control the listings, the company, EXP, we control a very, very large portion of the listings in the industry. Am I clear on that? You guys kind of get what I'm saying? Okay. The second part to that is that I'm not here, just to sell another house, sell another house, sell another house, give up my weekend, give up my Saturday, stress out, get yelled at, have to negotiate terms, inspections, like all that stuff. Like at one point, we'd like to take a step back and then 2 and 3, and then just be able to do this probably more for leisure. And so things that I would recommend is you're in real estate. If you are not securing cash flow in different areas of, you're using your real estate license, then you're missing the whole point of getting your license, right? First thing I did when I got my license 25 years ago was I bought an investment property, a little $25,000 condo. Why? Because I knew that 25,000, somebody else is going to pay $500 a month. They're going to pay it off. One day it's going to be worth 300,000, and that's great. I built a savings account that somebody else is putting money into every month, plus the market. So that's one of the vehicles. Stock, you can go start a whole company, but that's a lot of work. I know because I've done it several times. This company gives you the ownership opportunity because every time you help the company grow, they reward you with stock. When you produce, if you're a top producer, if you're an icon agent, you're going to get $16,000. That commission you paid the company, they're just going to hand it right back to you in commission, because that's what we do with our icon program, right? And then for me, the biggest opportunity, and I'll share and close with this, is that, I have investment properties. I had a 200-person franchise office and a few other businesses. And when I was looking at, does this make sense? I'm a broker. I'm a broker. I do not need to pay commission to any other brokerage. Why EXP? Why do this change? And why pay $16,000? Because I was looking at, if I put $100,000 as an investor into a property, I would hope to buy this 3-unit property, put $100,000 into it, and make $700 or $800, maybe $1,000. Let's say $1,000 positive cash flow a month. Okay, that would be great after expenses, repairs, all that stuff. So I put $100,000 into something. I'm going to make $1,000 every month from that. Okay, sounds good. More than I'll make in the bank. Okay. If I were to think about this as a business and say, hey, wait a minute, like, we're ahead of the game. We have all the tools. We have all the resources. I have this amazing team. I can learn AI. I can learn how to take more listings. I can learn how to build a team. All the things that this company offers. And why wouldn't I share it with 5 people? If I am going to invite 5 people to be part of my community, part of my tribe here at the company, those 5 people in today's numbers would be the equivalent of $20,000. You divide 20 in year one, $20,000, divide that by 12, you're at about what, $1,700 a month? So it took me $0 to earn a passive $1,700. Now that's the year one. Okay, so I'm just going to knock that down to 1,000. So am I that person who invites people to like restaurants? If you're ever sick, just so those of you who personally know me and you tell me, hey, you know what, I got this thing, I'm going to recommend oils and healers and doctors, because that's like another one of my spaces. So I'm the type of person that if something is great, I want other people to have it too, right? I want everybody to enjoy that. If you're that person as well, where you love, introducing great things to people, then focus on that, be intentional, and build a community around, you and around the company, so that you can create wealth and you can help other people do the same thing. Because in 3 or 5 years, instead of spending $3 or $4 or $500,000, which I know doesn't come easy to any of us, I could have the equivalent of having, $1 million in the bank based on the income that I have coming in, because the company didn't just give me a nice little Starbucks card or a dinner. They said, hey, you're part of the company. We are partners. We have the platform. We have the systems. We have the training. Like, we're not running commercials. We're not hiring people to run little offices for us. If our agents bring us agents, if we partner with them, we want them to win as well. We want to grow together. So again, think of this as a business, guys. I hope this was a valuable session. I hope learning about what was happening in 2026 was insightful. And more than anything, I hope that you actually do something with this. because information is dead without acts. So thank you guys. For those that I just met, nice to meet you. And for everybody in my group, nice to see you. So ciao guys.
Bye.
Bye.